Hi guys, and welcome back to my third video now in what is the span of a week. I honestly didn't expect to be sitting here making so many videos, putting out so much content and being so excited to do so, which is the most important part for me. No burnout, no risk of overdoing it, just excited to produce content. And today is an especially exciting video. I mean, we all know why we're here. The Champions League Round of 16 draw. I'm going to be going through every game. I'm going to be analysing every game, not very in-depth, but a little bit, and giving you my predictions, of course. Also excited to just start some discourse in the comments and talk about what you probably don't like about what I said. Moving on, I'm going to get straight to the games. I know there's a lot to cover, and I'm going to be trying to be as brief as possible. The first game, I have to start off with my own team, Barcelona versus Newcastle. I think it's going to be a great fixture. As a Barcelona fan, I have to admit this is quite obviously the easy side of the bracket, and I've been talking about it over on Twitter, but easy doesn't mean straightforward. Easy is relative, but if you look at the sides here, Newcastle have the qualities to hurt us, especially having to go to St. James Park, which is one of the best stadiums, one of the best away grounds, I think, to go to in terms of the atmosphere in the Champions League. So how do you hurt Barcelona, right? Let's just talk about that first. You hurt Barcelona with height, with set pieces, with physicality, pace, with power, and frankly, Newcastle tick all those boxes. They have Dan Burn, they have Voltemata in the air who can cause Barcelona a lot of problems just on set pieces. We've seen this time and time again. And they have the ability to exploit the high line with Anthony Gordon, who's scored 10 goals in the Champions League now, which is a statistic, by the way, that took me by immense surprise to see Gordon there with 10 goals, which is a lot, by the way. He scored 4 against Qarabag, playing a more central role now, so attacking our high line through the middle, which is the most exploitable part, because Barcelona, they push up and they don't close down nearly fast enough. I think one over the top through ball and Gordon could be feasting. So this isn't going to be an easy tie for Barcelona. Barcelona have not been at their best these past few weeks. We know that. The big loss against Atlético, followed by the loss against Girona, of course, a win. Tomorrow it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back against Villarreal, and then how they continue their pursuit against Atlético, which is going to be very difficult after a 4-0 loss. So a very good time in general to face Barcelona. Of course, we're also going to be without Frank de Jong, and I think Newcastle are going to be without Bruno Guimaraes. So two very big absentees in the midfield. Where I think Barcelona will edge this, I think Guimaraes is a very big loss for Newcastle, and I think Barcelona with Pedri back, with Bernal getting more minutes, looking sharper, with Rafinha and Lamine fully fit, with Ferran Lewandowski as well fully fit, and of course Olmo and Firmino doing that thing. I think Barcelona will have too much going forward, especially with the second game being at home. I think Newcastle are going to cause Barcelona a lot of problems, and if Barcelona play as they did against Atlético away, they could again be having to come back from behind at home to produce a result. Hopefully that was a wake-up call. We know Barcelona on the flick can be quite resilient to adversity. They've come down from big defeats. They've come back from big defeats. The Chelsea game to win a lot of games in a row, but they're going to have to replicate that again, and this time without a key midfielder. So I think it's going to be an interesting game, a tight game, but I still think Barcelona, the individuality over two legs, should show, and I think Barcelona have no excuse, at least not to push to semi-finals. I said this before, but it's going to be a great failure if Barcelona don't produce at least another semi-final run, where it's most likely going to be a very tough game against Arsenal. But Newcastle, Spurs, or Atleti, I think you should still be getting the job done with the resources at your disposal. So I'm going to go with the Barcelona win in this one. Shocker, I know, but I'm going to go with the Barcelona win. Next game, guys, we have a game. First of all, let's see if you get this. A game that is going to be the 10th and 11th encounter between these sides over the past 5 years. Now, think about this. Think about the Champions League. Think about the luck of actually having to be drawn together, then being drawn together over and over and over again over the past 5 years. It's, of course, Man City versus Real Madrid. I mean, we've already seen this fixture in this season's Champions League again, same as Barcelona. City went away to Madrid and produced a pretty comfortable victory. I think the scoreline probably didn't suggest it, but the game did. But, talking about this game feels like deja vu. I am tired. The world is tired. We don't need to see another City versus Madrid game, but here we are talking about City Madrid yet again in the Champions League knockout. Let's talk about it. Since we're here, let's talk about it. While Madrid have been in crisis mode all year, I don't think City are devoid of their own problems. what's interesting about this City side for me is this is one of the most transitional Pep Guardiola sides I've seen. This is one of the most willing and eager to go direct and go along with Marmoush, with Semenyo, with Haaland. We haven't seen that before consistently from a Pep Guardiola side. And surprisingly, they do struggle in the midfield. They do struggle to control and dominate possession. Not possession as in the actual stat, but possession as in the game. You know, they aren't the most comfortable City side or Pep side on the ball by any means. In fact, they're perhaps on the lower end of the spectrum. With Rodri just coming back from a two big major injuries. Actually, he isn't the same player he was. He might take time to get back there. Bernardo Silva, again, not the player he was a long time ago, a few years ago. Still very important for Pep with all the work he does. But City have, I think, gravitated toward more of a game in behind with, again, like I said, Semenyo, Marmoush, Haaland, and of course Nico O'Reilly, who now has been playing in the midfield. Again, a midfielder quite physical, quite dominant, can crash the box, can score goals, as we saw. But Madrid are just in crisis mode at the moment. I mean, I've struggled to watch them, even as a Barcelona fan, wanting them to lose. The games are just so dire, so monotonous, and aside, even against Benfica, if Benfica were more clinical, if Benfica put on what I think they could have, that second leg away, they could have very easily come away with the win, given how depleted Madrid were as well. So in the Champions League, just going away from this game and speaking more generally, I think it's about when and where you face sides, so the circumstances they're in going into the game. Think of PSG last season. Think of the side they were in the first half of the season versus the second half of the season. You know, these big sides, your PSGs, Barcelona's, Chelsea's, Cities, they have the individuality. They have the players to hurt you. They're not inferior in terms of resources to anyone, but the difference, I think, comes down to where they are injury-wise, confidence-wise, morale-wise, momentum-wise, right? And Madrid are just in an awful place right now. City are trending up, but again, in a title race with Arsenal, looking confident, looking good again, and the second leg again being at home, which I think is a huge factor in the Champions League over two legs. So I think they get this done, and they get it done quite comfortably. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, of course, but I think that City are just too much for Madrid at the moment, given their situation, and given the fact that I really don't rate Arbeloa as a manager. I think Madrid long term would have been better sticking with Xabi Alonso. I think getting Arbeloa in he just isn't a great manager. Maybe a good bad manager for momentum, but I think City get this done and quite comfortably so. Next game, guys. We're moving straight forward to Bayern versus Atalanta. Now, before I begin, I have to say I've been so impressed with Palladino. After Gasperini left, there were question marks over Atalanta. There were question marks about where they're going to be, how they're going to be this season, but I think they've bounced back really well. They don't concede many goals. I think they've only conceded 22 goals in 26 games in Serie A. They're a side that is very resilient, that can soak up pressure, but they're also a side that can score goals. We saw that game, that tie against Dortmund was one of the ties of the Champions League. So much drama, so much entertainment for them to come back after the 2-0 defeat in the first leg against the Dortmund side who have grown into it, who do look better, I think was sensational. And I think Atalanta are not going to make things easy for Bayern. I think Bayern, of course, I do predict them to win. Just before I get carried away, I do predict them to win. I think they've been, I've run out of superlatives for what Kompany's achieved with his front line, especially going forward. The most free-flowing, the most entertaining, dynamic side in football. Elise is in world-beating form. Kane's looking like the best striker in the world, which I think he is. Luis Diaz, someone I've been quite critical of in the past, just looks sensational. Of course, I think playing in the Bundesliga does play into their hands, not because the Bundesliga is inferior, not a good league, but I think just the attacking firepower of Bayern combined with the aggressive nature of German football really plays into their hands. But again, we've seen in the Champions League and even in the Bundesliga in recent weeks that they can be hurt, that they can look a little bit vulnerable defensively, especially early on in games, in first halves especially. And I think if Atalanta can soak up some pressure, can defend well, which they do, and then hit them at the right moment, they could score a few goals. They could make the tie interesting. But again, two legs against probably one of the two best sides in the world right now, alongside Arsenal, sides to beat in the Champions League. Bayern are going to have enough. I think. Not just. I think they'll be quite comfortable, but I don't think it'll be a blowout because I do respect Atalanta and I do respect what they've done this season. Moving on, guys, let's go back to a game that I am very interested to talk about. I could have gone a different direction with this, but a game I'm very interested to talk about is PSG versus Chelsea. This is a repeat of the final of the FIFA Club World Cup, a repeat of the game that shocked the world, where PSG got dominated. PSG that had won everything. PSG that were the best side in the world by far got dominated against Chelsea. And that just goes to show like how fast does football move? You have PSG 6 months ago. PSG world beaters. You know, people talking about them starting a dynasty. People talking about them being one of the best sides they've seen in a while. And compare that to the PSG this season. Of course, they've been hit with injuries. They've had their own problems, but they've looked a shadow of themselves. I've watched PSG time and time again. I've spoken to PSG fans who are good mates of mine, and there's just so much disappointment around the side. We know what they produced last year as well in the first half of the season, how they grew into it, but it's been a long time now. We're in February, right? We saw even the tie against Monaco. It was not comfortable. PSG had to come back from 2 goals down and produce a very hard-fought performance, very hard-fought victory. And in the French league, in Ligue 1, they're in a title race with Lens, who've been tremendous, by the way. PSG continue dropping points, continue making life difficult for themselves, and continue struggling, conceding goals left, right, and centre. And now, even with the players back, they don't look the side they were last year. But looking at the other side, Chelsea don't either. You know, after the Club World Cup, people thought Chelsea, right, things under Maresca finally looking good, finally looking positive. Then they go into the season, did quite well, a bit patchy, a bit erratic. Then they have the game against Barcelona where they dominate and beat Barcelona. And again, people think, okay, now Chelsea's in this, they're going to continue growing. But whenever you think Chelsea are about to hit a high, they strike a low and they go further down. Of course, they've had to sack Maresca, problems within the board, but also with the results. And now they're in a situation where they just seem to lose games they shouldn't be losing against inferior sides, against inferior opposition, where they lose concentration, where they lose focus, where they can see late goals. So this is a tie that I can't predict because both sides are so unpredictable. I think they have incredible highs, but also very consistent lows. The thing with Chelsea is, I think people could attest to this, is the fact that they seem to do well when their backs are against the wall, when people don't expect them to win. They seem to produce results that kind of shock the world a little bit, and they have that tendency going back a long time, especially even that Champions League they won under Tuchel, right? So they have that DNA weirdly, and of course they have the physicality and the quality, especially at the back, but in midfield at least, to hurt a side like PSG. I think it's going to be a close tie, but again, the second leg being in Stamford Bridge, which is very difficult ground to go anyway, and PSG kind of struggling. I need to predict one upset in this video, so I'm going to go ahead and predict Chelsea to win, which is kind of shocking as well, given how much stick I give Chelsea, but I'm going to say that they just edge a victory and surprise the world yet again. And if I get this right, please clip this if I get this right, because it's going to be quite a cold prediction. Moving on, guys, I'm going to go again to a game I really like, which is Bodø versus Sporting. Both sides I have so much respect and admiration for. You know, Bodø have been the story of the Champions League, being in their pre-season, needing to beat City and Atlético Madrid to qualify, firstly, for the knockout stages, doing that, then beating Inter Milan over 2 legs, with the second leg away from home. Just a sensational story. I mean, I've run out of superlatives for this side. They've shocked the world now 3-4 times in a row. They play a 4-3-3, which is so refreshing to see in the modern game, and they do it so well. Exceptional in possession, can play the transition game, smooth, so much intent, so much aggression. They don't hold possession just for the sake of it. They're a purposeful side. And they have so much harmony and chemistry, and that's so obvious in every game they play. But they're also comfortable, as we saw against Inter, sitting back. And I'm not going to say they're a great defensive side. I don't think that's true, but they can sit back. They do have the awareness to play games a certain way, but even when they sit back against Inter, they didn't just sit back and soak up pressure for 90 minutes, not at all. They played with intent. They played attacking football when they needed to, and they produced goals. This side scores goals against no matter who it is. So I'd expect goals again. And I also want to talk about Sporting, because, again, we're forgetting they did finish, 7th now in the league stage, an automatic qualification, which no one expected against some against some huge names as well. They're a side that since Amorim's left, I think have continued growing. Of course, they're on top of the Portuguese league this season, but they're close. They've remained consistent. They consistently win games, both in Europe and domestically, and I think they have a lot about them. They're averaging over 2.5 goals a game this season in the Portuguese league, and they've been very consistent again in the Champions League. So I think if you want to watch great football, if you want to watch football for the storylines, this is the game to watch. I know it's not going to be the most watched game by any means, but this is a game I am excited to watch. And no matter who wins, I think we're going to come away with a great story going into the quarterfinals, and probably the game between the two dark horses of the competition. I'm going to predict a Sporting win just because I really respect what they do, same as Bodø, but this is, again, close to 50-50, and I won't be surprised no matter the winner, and I wouldn't be disappointed no matter winner, but I'm just going to go with Sporting win just. Moving on, guys, it's Spurs versus Atlético Madrid. A very interesting tie, I think, with two sides who have similar characteristics in some ways. Two sides who are always the perpetual underdogs competing against the big dogs. But right now, I think Atlético Madrid are clear favourites. And I'd go so far as to say I expect this to be quite easy for them. I know Spurs did qualify automatically, did very well this year in the Champions League. But again, that was with a very favourable fixture list. The advantage Atleti have, I think Atleti have everything going for them in this tie, and Spurs have everything going against them. I think if Spurs had all their players fit, your Madisons, Kulusevskis, Kudus, they would be competitive. There's not much between the sides, the squads when fully fit. But Spurs have an injury crisis again. Spurs are genuinely in a relegation battle. They're 4 points above the drop zone going into the business end of this season, and the injuries just don't get any better. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas Atletico Madrid can basically rest players in the league because they know they're comfortable finishing in the top four, but they know they can't push for the title. So they're playing two competitions right now, the Copa del Rey and the Champions League. We saw what they did to Barcelona at home, where Barcelona may have underestimated them, may have not expected that intensity, that hunger, that passion. And with Lookman as well, who's been sensational signing, I think they just look a different side in the league versus in cup competitions right now. And I think that's also going to be evident against Spurs. Atletico, wildly inconsistent. You don't know what you're getting with them. So I'm very apprehensive even saying that they're going to win and win comfortably. But I just have a feeling that they've put all their chips in the Champions League and Copa del Rey basket, and I think they're going to go on a pretty good run this year in the Champions League. And Spurs are just too depleted, and I think don't have enough at the moment to compete at this level, frankly. So Atletico Madrid for the win, and dare I say, a comfortable win. Moving forward, guys, the penultimate game to look forward to, we have Galatasaray versus Liverpool. Look, Galatasaray are one of those sides that are incredible at home. We know these Turkish sides, we know the atmosphere, we know the intensity, and we know how much of a show they can put on in their own backyard. Again, this is one of the many ties that we've already seen with this format in the group stages. We've seen them, and in fact, we've seen them beat Liverpool. Again, this isn't the Liverpool of last season. This isn't the Liverpool that looked so dominant, so relentless. This is a Liverpool that looks very inconsistent, that looks very beatable, that looks very, very vulnerable. So I do expect this to be close, especially in the game in Turkey. When Liverpool go away to Galatasaray, I think it's quite possible that Galatasaray come away with at least a draw. Then taking the game back to Anfield, the individuality, again, I think is going to be too vast, too stark. So as good as Galatasaray have been, we saw in that game against Juve, when you put them under pressure, even though Juve had 10 men, and Juve are by no means well beaters, even though I do like them under Spalletti, they just crumbled, and it was so close. They almost capitulated, and then of course clawed it back. So I think a side like Liverpool going away to Anfield with all the firepower they have over two legs, it looks very difficult for Galatasaray to pull it off again. That said, of course, it's football; anything can happen. I'm not as confident in this prediction, given how erratic Liverpool has been, as I am in some of my other ones, but I'm still going to go ahead and predict a Liverpool victory. I'd say about 2 goals, maybe. Last but not least, guys, I really don't want to waste much time on this Arsenal versus Leverkusen. I just think, look, Arsenal have way too much for this Leverkusen side. Leverkusen, they look vulnerable defensively. I know this they've had their guts and brains taken out of them with Xabi Alonso last season, and then Florian Wirtz. So I think it's going to be very difficult for Leverkusen to produce anything. I think Atletico, I think Arsenal just come in and dominate and win this game quite comfortably. They have too much, really, and I think they're the side to beat in the competition alongside Bayern. And really, if you look at this is the perfect draw for Arsenal. I mean, I know Barcelona is on the same side, so it's not great from my team's perspective, but I think they're going to have too much, and they're going to be comfortable at least until the semi-finals. So, yeah, Arsenal to win quite emphatically. I think this game and the Atleti game might be the most one-sided, which might be hot take with the Atleti game, but yes, no concerns here for Arsenal. Anyways, guys, I think I'm going to end the video on that note. A lot to talk about, a lot to digest. I know this was quite an information-dense video, but it's just so exciting. I think we have so many great matchups: PSG, Chelsea, City, Madrid, Barcelona, Newcastle. So much to look forward to, and I'm excited. I'm excited to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm going to put a graphic here of all the teams I predicted to win, and hopefully my goal is I get at least 5 right. I'd be happy with 5. I'd be incredibly happy with 6, and we can talk about that later. Thank you for watching, and until next time.